Tyler, so I met Patrick in Las Vegas at the Builder Show. He's down in Atlanta, and he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. He's got a ton of stuff going on. And frankly,
I think the funniest part is how you met him, actually, because if you heard the story, you'd be like, "Wait, hold on, what are you talking about?" But I was not.
The event.
Yeah, the event.
Well, I probably delivered that poorly. But I mean, you'll find out as you listen to this podcast. But he's a builder. He's a developer. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's got consulting going on. He's running masterminds. What I think is one of the most important takeaways from this podcast is that he's shifted his mindset around what being a builder, contractor, developer is to looking at real estate first and maximizing what the opportunity is within that real estate. And you'll understand what I mean by that as you listen. But he's done a fantastic job of building a brand and a product around his real estate. And then from that, a brand around who he is and what he's successfully accomplished.
Yeah, having the conversation with him. This is the first time that I'm getting to meet Patrick, but he's got everything in order. And he's a professional, and he's proud of what he's doing, and he's doing everything to the best of his ability. And I think that a huge takeaway for me is just like, whatever you're going to do it 100% and bring the energy with it. And that was really inspiring, and it was good to meet him.
Yeah, and when it doesn't work, learn from it and adapt on the next one.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Is something I struggle with. Let's get into it. Hey, you want to know the easiest way to install a window wall? With Andersen Easy Connect, Andersen's Easy Connect joining system delivers the ultimate job site convenience, making it easier to install the large window combinations homeowners desire, while also reducing the job site resources that are needed.
In fact, most contractors surveyed said they could reduce the number of installers by 50% using this joining system. Available on Andersen A series and 100 series, this patented system splits large window combinations into smaller subgroup combinations that are factory assembled. This allows for all the necessary joining components to be applied before getting to the job site, so upon arrival, it's ready to install directly into the rough opening.
Quick side note, if you are a one-man installer, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to reduce your number of installers by 50%. But this patented reinforced joining system
you can install windows that are twice as big.
Oh, there we go.
Which is basically
or
the same
twice
thing.
As fast.
Yeah.
This patented reinforced joining system utilizes interlocking fiberglass joining plates, offering design flexibility without compromising the performance. And the system is tested to the AAMA 450 and the Hallmark certified for air, water, and structural performance. Reinforcing joining with A-series windows is also high velocity hurricane zone, or HVHZ, approved. Make your next window wall install easier. And to learn more, visit AndersonWindows.com. It's been over a half a year since the International Builder Show, and if you're aching to get to another construction conference where you can network with other pros and learn how to improve your business, well, listen up.
I can't believe it's August, to be honest. It said it's 6 months since the Builder Show, but I'm just like, it's August now, and I cannot believe that.
Yeah, we're in month 8, but yeah.
Insane. Buildertrend University has a full schedule lined up for the rest of the year. This 2-day event is packed with expert-led classes, one-on-one coaching, and prime networking opportunities, all held at Buildertrend headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska, every month, sometimes twice.
The catch, well, you have to be a Buildertrend customer. So if you're not, head over to buildertrend.com/MC demo to see the tool in action and get signed up.
Otherwise, whether you're a beginner or an advanced user, you'll master Buildertrend's tools in the training sessions, meeting the incredible team behind the software and connect with peers in the industry. Don't miss this chance to elevate your building business. Spots are limited, so register today at buildertrend.com/MCBTU.
Skylights are a surprising way to add interest to a home. And we hear that homeowners are so happy after installing Velux skylights that they wish they had installed more.
Do you guys? We wanna make a point that it is Velux. We've heard people say Velux. I may have said Velux once before myself, but it is
I
in
do hear
fact
it. V
Velux.
Lux.
Velux. So now you know.
And Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes it easy to add natural light to your build. And innovative technology, including built-in rain sensors, solar power, and a 3-layer of leak protection, makes skylights a great addition to any project.
Yeah, and most builders agree they're even easier to install than a vertical window while still creating an impressive space. Visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about their industry-leading installation and warranty.
We've had a guest
Outside.
This is amazing.
Yeah. Tried to change scenery a little bit.
You've done a couple podcasts, right? Do you have your own podcast?
No, I don't.
I was going through your links and I saw that you've been on a guest on a bunch of other ones. Man, you got so much stuff going on. And you and we had a brief conversation at the Builder Show. We didn't get into any of it, so I'm glad. I'm actually glad we didn't, because we can just talk about it all now and make it into this awesome podcast. But how are you?
Man, I'm hanging in there, trying to get through all the stuff that we got going on. So it's good.
What is it? What's the main thing that you do? Because are you building custom and develop?
So
or
yes,
all development? Yeah.
Custom and develop. So custom modern homes and develop locations as well.
And you're in Baltimore, right? Or Atlanta,
Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
What did I see that maybe you did something, or one of your events was in Baltimore?
We've done events all over. We've been in California, Miami, Bahamas, North Carolina, LA.
We didn't get invited to the Bahamas one, Nick?
Hey, that's coming next. Any of them.
Damn.
What are these events?
So I host mastermind events for other developers and other builders looking to get into the space, or just looking for a safe haven where people can work together and elevate what they're currently doing and going to the next level.
How'd you get involved with that?
It's crazy because, dealing in this high-end real estate market that we're dealing with here in the Atlanta area, a lot of people just don't have anybody they can turn to. So what I did was put together a consortium of developers where we can call on each other for, various type, trades and things of that nature. So as I get a build that I don't have the bandwidth to complete, I'll pass it over to other colleagues.
So you were a builder first, and then this was came after being a builder?
Well, kind of. So for instance, my original background is IT. I used to own a software development firm, and then started to get into your basic fix and flips back in 2004. As the market crashed in 2008, ended up going back into IT. And then 2013 decided to get into the market from a different perspective, from the standpoint of, if the market were to crash again, how would I, be able to stay afloat? And so that's how I entered into the high-end real estate arena. And then from there, started to build a network of other developers and builders from across the country that were looking for someone to kind of assist them in their projects.
So what was the catalyst for that? Were you struggling with certain things and you were looking to have, or wanting a network of people that you could turn to? Where did that idea come from?
It kind of birthed on how I got started in real estate, solely because my mantra was, if I didn't know something, I'd pull up on a project site, drop my lawn chair in place, and started to, learn and watch what other people were doing. I coined it the lawn chair learning circle.
Legit lawn chair? You would sit down and watch?
Coming from the football field, lawn chair, we'd drop it on the site, and I'd have my contractors out there working, and I'd ask questions. And
he's on the lawn chair right now for the podcast.
You know what I mean? And that's how it got going. And from there, we started doing, little mini masterminds at a lot of my project sites. So people would come in, I charge like $15 a person, and that would just pay for like, drinks and hors d'oeuvres and food. And people had to bring their lawn chairs, and we'd do it at project sites. And basically, I'd come in, talk about the project, everything that's going on from there. And then people would, I'd bring in other speakers to talk about some of their projects. And then we had a thing called the deal room. If anybody, wanted to wholesale a deal or buy a deal or whatever the case may be. And then it just started to morph into, bigger and better things, where my whole mantra was about exposure and exposure to different markets. And so that's kind of how things just started to snowball into a bigger platform.
What when you say that when you got back into the market after the crash, you wanted to protect yourself from if a market were to crash again, and that's why you got into the high end,
Right.
Luxury market. Talk to me a little bit about the specifics behind that, because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of fear mongering going on, today, and it gets worse and worse with the exposure of social media and things like that. But
Right.
I I think a lot of people wonder when someone like you says, "Oh, I did this to protect myself from a crashing market."
Sure.
They want to know what specifically is protecting you. Like what do you feel as though kind of isolating you from a volatile market?
Sure. So I look at it this way. It's a different type of clientele, right? So majority of my clientele, especially here in this Atlanta market, is coming from various locations, such as California. I get buyers in from New York,
Mm,
Chicago, DC. And when they come into this Atlanta market and they understand the pricing by which we, have houses, especially luxury houses, they're buying them cash, right?
mm,
A lot of our buyers are, paying 1.7 in cash or paying $2.5 million in cash, or if they don't buy it all in cash, they come in with a strong down payment, where they're at 80% cash and 20% mortgage just to have one. And at that point, we're dealing with a different type of person. You're dealing with the doctors, you're dealing with the attorneys, you're dealing with the athletes or the entertainers, or even the C-suite executives who I often prefer to deal with anyway. But yeah, they're coming into this market and they're coming from a different position than those people who, are barely qualifying for that particular home.
Why do you prefer to deal with the C-suite guys?
From a business standpoint, they understand business, they understand things happen. And from the understanding of, timelines, they understand the timelines and the infrastructure that I try to put in place for my
Mm.
projects. Again, coming from corporate America, we kind of speak the same language in regards to the things that we move forward with, from project planning to, how I incorporate Buildertrend into a lot of my project suites, to the project plans and all of those types of things.
When you said that you got into the flip market in '04, obviously before the market crashed. You were in IT at that point. What was the motivation for getting into that at that point?
So I always knew that I enjoyed or wanting to explore the real estate arena. I enjoyed being able to be out in the field. When I was in IT, I flew all over the country. I was in a different city every week, right? And when I was home, I really liked going out and looking at different architecture, looking at different projects. And so, everybody said, hey, you can make money in real estate. So I wanted to find out how so. And so I got into what I call lipstick renovations, which is your basic paint, carpet, and turn over, fix, and flip properties. And then I ended up jumping into the burnout properties, right? So I used to heavily look for projects that had caught in fire, solely because the people who used to own the properties, obviously they had a family tragedy, but their insurance generally took care of them, right? The insurance paid them out for, whatever damages. And at that point, oftentimes they were looking to go because the mental anguish of being on that property after it caught fire, etc., had them selling the property at a pretty decent price because they'd already paid for it. So everything that they sold it for was gravy. And so I used to do heavy fire property remediation or new construction on fire properties.
Do you feel that obviously that was a different time, and what you're doing now is fairly different than that? And
Oh,
obviously
absolutely.
you say that when you got back into it, you wanted to basically position yourself so that you weren't so exposed or had as much liability. But how much of that do you feel also comes down to maybe compassion or having a different mindset from the business perspective, where it's like, all right, we're not trying to monetize or maximize our profit on lipstick renovations, and finding these people who are probably in a bad position? And how much does that align with like your model now? Because I feel like it's so much different. What
Oh,
you were
absolutely.
doing seems like it was capitalizing on a market that wasn't like the most ideal situation for everyone, and now you're in a completely different market. How much do you think that aligns with what you're doing now, and kind of the standards that you're upholding?
So back when I was finding, my mantra was anything in Atlanta was worth $100,000. I don't care what kind of shape that project was in. It was worth $100,000, and with just a little bit of curb appeal, you could actually, turn that into, a diamond in the rough, right? And then capitalizing on people who decided that they wanted to get out of a project who they were already free and clear on, especially on the burnouts and things of that nature. Then moving forward, understanding that even though I had a property that was $200,000 and $300,000, the person who's buying that home, oftentimes I were dealing with first-time home buyers. I were dealing with people who, were just everyday Joes, right? Who were, if a recession took place, they were affected drastically. And so it affected me because at that point in time, when the market crash took place, I had, 5 or 6 properties that we had buyers for, but the banks weren't lending them any money at that
Yeah.
point in time. So I ended up having to hold the bag for those properties. Right. And so I said, when I came back into the marketplace, I wanted to deal with a different type of property, but also with a different type of clientele. That at the end of the day, even if the market were to shift or correct itself today, they would still buy. They're making informed decisions, but they're still buying. A lot of my buyers buy cash or a heavily down payment. So the project continues to move forward. In addition to that, the additional upgrades that are coming about on those particular projects are great in itself.
What was your path to go into that market? I know you're doing development and custom, but I guess how did you get there, right? Like, how'd you go from doing the other
Sure.
the previous projects to getting into the luxury market? Did you start with a custom? Did you start with the development?
I started with pop to tops, right? So I'd go into an area that I knew that was flourishing. So I went into areas where they were doing $700,000 and $800,000 homes, and we'd find a house, we'd pop the top and go up for a second story.
I love that.
Renovate that.
I've never heard that saying. I love that.
Oh, really?
You're ripping the roof off, putting the second floor on, right?
Yeah. We pop the
Pop the
top.
top. Okay, got it.
Yeah, we'd find a location where we can add a stairway. We'd gut out the house. And I did that quite a few times where I'd go and find duplexes and I'd pop the top and convert them to single family residence. And then we'd either keep it and Airbnb it, because now we have a 5 and 6 bedroom home. And, I really love that model because coming into Atlanta where there were a lot of conventions and a lot of different events taking place here, we were able to rent those things out for top dollar because people would rather go to a 5-bedroom Airbnb than rent 5 bedrooms at a hotel.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you're coming in for sporting events, kids' soccer game, football game, or, we used to have a lot of ladies' weekends that come to the house or, family reunions, things of that nature. Yeah. So it just made sense. And then I started to build upon that and do more and more larger, higher end projects. We went from 800,000 to 900,000 in different areas. And then I got to the point where I found a nucleus of an area that I wanted to concentrate in. I moved into that area, found a lot, demolished a house, and built a modern home on that particular lot. Then I found a lot across the street that the owner was getting ready to relocate. I purchased that property, demolished it, and built a modern home. So now we're 2 across the street from each other. Then I went 5 doors down, bought that lot, built a modern, went 4 doors down, built that modern. So now I'm building within a neighborhood which more and more of my product exists, right? And so now not only am I building my own comps, but I'm setting my own market using that market analysis to understand who's in the neighborhood, what are they buying, what are some of the buying trends, and then how do you start to set the values for that neighborhood?
Were you funding these renovations, or were they for customers?
I was funding them. So basically, at the time, I was using hard money or I was using private capital and going from there. And the first one wasn't easy, right? Because banks didn't understand how I would take a $250,000 property that didn't look like much, add $700,000 to it, and sell it for 1 point anything. They just didn't understand that from the market, because me being from California, and then having lenders out of California lending here in Georgia, they didn't understand the market trends. So I had to, fight through that a little bit. But as I got to my 3rd property, it just became, a very, very easy thing to do.
So what was the conversation like for the first house to get loaned the money? Because I think that that's an interesting perspective for people, because like listening to, all right, we moved into this location, we purchased this lot, or we tore down this house, we built a house, and we bought the next one. Like, that gets me jacked up. I'm excited to hear that. But it's like, how did that actually happen? And like, even right, all right, we're going to buy a $250,000 property and dump $750 into it. What did you have to prove for profit to be able to, get the money or obtain the money that you needed from the bank, get enough equity out of that you could dump it into the next one? Like, what did that look like for you? What were the struggles that came along with that?
Absolutely great question. So so what I did was I moved into a neighborhood and I did a lease of a house for a year while I really tried to understand what this neighborhood market was. Found a lot that had a house on there that was dilapidated, drove up and down the street, every single week, understanding what was going on and what the owner was trying to do with that house. So I ended up buying the house. Bought it for $239,000. It was a 1 acre plot of land.
What was the primary reason to lease, to still hold on to enough capital to be able to invest in something at that point?
It was that, but it was also to understand that this was an area that I actually wanted to be in.
Okay.
Right. So found a property within walking distance and leased in this area. Then I said, okay, that's the house. That's the lot that I want to make my own. So then I went ahead and got the capital and I did the build for myself for my own house. Right. As I started to understand what was going on, what was the real estate climate in this particular area. And this was, mind you, at this point, this was 2017, understanding what the real estate climate in this area was. I said there was an opportunity for me to buy the house directly across the street. Now, mind you, older established neighborhood, houses going for, on this street, the highest was probably about 700 at the time. And went and got the capital, got a construction loan in order to build, put down some money for that, and then built a modern home. House is about 7,200 square feet, or about 7,000 square feet. And lived in there, and then found a lot across the street when the guy was getting ready to relocate, and then decided to buy that. Now, this is where I began to run into problems. The bank did not understand the market from the standpoint of how I was able to capitalize, build, and sell, and still make profit on that. And so with that being said, we had to infuse a lot of capital into that particular build. We tore it down on our own capital. We put the foundation down on the property, and then we used our money out of pocket in order to start the framing. And then we turned around and got the loan in order to continue the build from that perspective. That house, I think I bought it for like $250 when I did the demolish on there. We ended up selling that house when it was all said and done for 1.8.
That's crazy. I mean, that's kind of crazy in a $800,000 neighborhood to begin with. But is that the issue that the bank was having?
Yes,
That essentially you were going to overinvest in this neighborhood. There weren't comps in the area, and it was too much risk at that point.
that is correct. However, the product wasn't a traditional home, and being that we were building a modern home, which you have a percentage bump up in cost as well as a price for that particular house, we were able to find comps slightly further away for that particular product. So now we have two products, two houses on the street that are modern. Then we started to move forward and we bought a third, then we bought a fourth, and then we've got a fifth. And at this point, we're now creating the demand. People are starting to move into the area wanting these properties. A lot of people are coming in from multiple locations, from back west, up north, because the properties that they're paying for these homes are a drop in a bucket compared to where they exist or where they were living previously.
Yeah, I mean, even just the size of that house alone on a square footage price, like $2 million isn't crazy for 7,000 square foot worth of house.
Right. And they're on, anywhere between half acre to 1 acre to now fast forward 7 years later, our sales in the area, we're close to 3 million. We're just over $3 million for homes of the similar same square footage.
Yeah. So you're basically taking advantage of the opportunity that people are transplanting to Atlanta, and they're coming in for, paying a lesser price per square foot, while on top of that, they're buying a great investment because it's a scarce product and a scarce market, and the market is continuing to grow. So they're 1.8 that they spend, a couple of years later, they're 3 million. Now they got $1.2 million in equity in the home. And it's like that, all that does for you is puts you on the map in terms of buying your product is a good investment, and it just rinse and repeat.
That is absolutely correct. To the point where we ended up selling the house that I ended up moving into, that I built for myself, the first one, sold that, and then moved into an apartment and turned around and built me another house in the same neighborhood. And now we're at 8,000 square feet for that particular project, which I'm standing at now. And, we're appraising at 3.6.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this process, were you using the money that you secured to pay yourself and keep yourself afloat? Or was that just going towards the project?
So a little bit of both, doing that. And then we were still using private capital in order to kind of do some of the construction on it as well.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people are thinking, and I recall being younger and being like, well, how are you going to get the capital to do the first one, right? If the first one's successful, then the next one's going to be a little bit easier. And there's obviously workarounds to doing that. But I think that the biggest wall that people face is like, okay, so I'm going to borrow money to complete this project, and that's going to pay for the project. But like, how are you going to survive throughout that? If that's your job at that point, and you don't have another job where this is just an investment and you're managing it, if you have no other source of income until that project's complete, how are you paying for life at that point? And it's like, at sometimes you're borrowing money to be able to keep yourself afloat, to hope to recoup the equity on the back end of that.
That is absolutely correct. And then got to the point where I had built so many that now I'm building for others, right? So now we have other clientele that like the build, understand what we are doing, understand the model, and so they bring me on to do their builds.
Do you have a preference as to what
yes
you would rather be doing?
Absolutely. So you got to understand. So when you're building for others, obviously they foot the construction note and things of that nature. Versus if I'm building for myself, even though I'm building a quote unquote custom home, I'm handling all the expenses that are tied to it. So I used to have a model where I was 80% for myself, 20% others. I have actually flipped that model to where I will build 20 for myself and then 80% for other clientele.
And is that just for exposure to risk?
Yes, absolutely. But again, a lot of people don't understand, having a buyer is a blessing and a curse in the front side anyway.
Well, I think that most people feel that the dream is to be able to run your own projects, secure your own financing, fund your own renovations or builds, and then you're not necessarily answering
Right.
to a customer, right? You can make all the decisions, you can work on your own timeline, but at the end of the day, there is something to be said for like the lack of financial risk and investment on your behalf. So it is a trade-off. It's like you're dealing with customers and the needs of others, but at the same time, like you don't have to put out $500,000, $1 million to build something. So the exposure and the risk is less. Like I think that most people in their head think that it would just be much easier to not have a customer and to secure the financing or pay for it yourself.
Yeah, because sometimes, having that customer in hand can be very painful because, again, you have project slowdowns, you have working with the temperaments of the different buyers or customers. So that in itself, can cause some head damage, I should say. But on the other side of it, you had your risk at that point versus you take on all the risk in terms of, the funding of the projects and all of those types of things. But then depending upon how fast your capital stroke can be, you can run through it.
Well, so now, Nick, do you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, well, just more of a statement. It's interesting because, I'm looking at I've been in business for 10 years and we've always been client based, right? We're always working for a client. And for a long time, I struggled with the fact that I just want to build a product. And you've done the exact opposite, where it's like you built the product and you're in the position where it's like I'm looking to be in terms of like shifting my business to being product based, where it's like you're hiring me because you like the product that we do, not necessarily the service. And I think that's the challenging part of being a custom home builder is that you're building everything for everyone. Where it's like I get, our 45 White Oak project, like that is a spec, that is our product, and ultimately that will lead to many more of those.
I mean, Nick, that's exactly what he put the product to market that he wanted to build.
That's what I mean. Like he did it first. And I think listening to you, like you made the Airbnb comment and it kind of a light bulb went off my head. You're not approaching this as a builder first. You're approaching it as real estate, period.
Right.
It's like you're looking at real estate and you're developing real estate, and what you do with that real estate can and will change.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, I'll sell it. No, I won't. I'm going to rent it because I have ladies' weekends coming in paying me 10 grand a weekend to stay in Atlanta. Like whatever the case is, like you're just looking at
what week
real
of the year is that?
I know, right? Well, it's crazy because you're absolutely correct. Here in Atlanta, we found that it's now the Hollywood of the South, right? And so while we have California, which they were doing a heavy movie production, TV show production, etc., they're coming here to the Atlanta market. And now, I have several properties where people are renting them out months at a time for production, and they pay great money for it, right? And so it's trying to determine, okay, which property, if we're building it and it's not sold by the time that we're completed, which 98% of the homes that we build prior to completion are sold. If we say, you know what, we're going to keep this for a different use, then that's kind of what we've turned it into, where we can utilize that with the Georgia Film Commission in partnership in order to hold some of those bookings. And those corporate sponsors have been great for us. And in addition to that, we have those projects where we turn around and we're building for, a celebrity, a ball player, or what have you.
So with all this, I think I have a general idea of what you're doing and like the business end of things from a building perspective. But obviously the way that Nick met you at the Builder Show and poking around on your website and your social, it seems that like another aspect of what you're doing and probably just in true entrepreneurial spirit is that you have other things going on.
Right.
Looks like you have online courses. You're looking to do mentorship. I know that you had, you already mentioned it once in this podcast, but the importance of the term exposure to you and kind of passing off what you've learned to other people. Can you shed some insight as to like what that aspect of your business looks like and why you do all of that. It seems you could stay busy just doing the building and just doing the real estate. Why are you involved with the other side of things?
I think it's because it's a passion. One, I'm a teacher by nature. From the standpoint, I really like, as I get some more knowledge, I want to invest that knowledge in other people, especially, our youth, the students, things of that nature. Hence the reason why I, took some college interns and really are assisting them with their maturation into the real world, so to speak. But in addition to that, even my mentorship that I do for our yearly track where we're bringing in people and they're trying to understand this building industry, I just enjoy it from the standpoint, if I had to do a portion of it for free, I would, because that's how immersed and how much I enjoy being in the industry. And so doing, building over here, development over here, and then you have a teaching track that's over here, it's just kind of ties in together because it's all enjoyable to me.
So what was when you realized that there was a need for that, what was the first thing that you started doing to kind of foster that idea?
Sure. So what I used to do was so after I started doing the Launch Your Learning Circle, that came out really, really well. And then I started to create a real estate mastermind. What I wanted to do was take anywhere between 25 and 30 people who are in the real estate industry. And I wanted to go off to a secluded place where we can kind of lock in with each other and really understand what are the pain points that we're all experiencing within the marketplace and how do we overcome them, whether it's financial, whether it's having a team in place, whether it's exposure, etc. And so what we did was I did the first one here at Harris Cherokee, right outside in North Carolina. We took 30 real estate personnel. I took accountants, real estate attorneys, real estate agents, builders, and developers. And what we did was we got a conference room and we started talking about what the market held, how it was producing today, right? And what are some of the things that each one of us are experiencing and how do we, help each other move forward? Because one of the environments that I tried to foster here in the Atlanta market was it's all about collaboration. There's enough meat on the bone for everybody here to eat, right? So there's no point me crawling to, outdo this builder over here or outdo that builder over there. We can all work together. And so it was from that type of spirit, and it has started to grow. And so we did that here in Atlanta, or North Carolina first. Then I took it to Miami. Then I took it to the Bahamas. Then we took it to LA. And what happened was people would sign on and they wanted to be in the room with people who were doing things that they were interested in and being around other people. Because again, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new circle, right? So they wanted to be in rooms where they had people who had the same interest that could actually teach them something. And so that's how this started to morph into more things.
And how did you find the time? Like, did you bring on an entire team to get those things up and running?
Yes, I did.
And
that's part
you're still doing them?
I am. Actually, we're getting ready to partner up and do one sometime in October. I think we're going to go back to Los Angeles. One of our corporate partners, which is Bravas, as well as Sonance out of Southern California. We did one with them probably about a year and a half ago. We did a tour at their facility and we brought other builders and developers down there to try to understand, the coin phrase, how does your sound look? Right. Yeah. And so really understanding what that actually meant. We also partnered up with Lutron down there in their new lighting warehouse because people didn't understand the magnitude of what light could actually do in a space. So we ended up working with a lot of our corporate sponsors to help bring exposure to these things that a lot of people just did not know about. And so that's what we're looking at, probably go back to Los Angeles and work with them again.
Hey, I know we're right in the middle of the podcast, but quick interruption. Head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for our newsletter because we not only are releasing, newsletter subscriber only info, but we also have some discount codes coming out for the Contractor Coalition Summit that is happening in Boston this fall, September 25th. If you want to register now, you can head over to contractorcoalitionsummit.com. Sorry, September 27th. But sign up for our newsletter, and if you do it in time, you'll get a discount code that you can apply to the event in the fall, September 27th through the 30th. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, as far as the website goes, moderncraftsman.co. Hover over that little extras tab, and you're going to see the labor burden calculator and the pre-construction agreement. Click on them, and you can get them for free. Don't know how long they're going to be there. Don't know how long. Might be this week, might be next week. They're not going to be forever, but they're there for free now, so don't wait. Nick and I feel, have done similar things throughout our career, and even with the podcast. And it always, we haven't always taken the best business angle to it, where it's like it's done out of passion and it's done out of wanting to help and to give back. But obviously, like, it gets to a point where you have to balance that with the business side of things. So how much do you feel of what you're doing and when you started as a passion project versus like, all right, I have another business on my hands here?
It started as a passion project. Now it's turning into another business.
Yeah.
Because it's a heavy lift, right? You're bringing in, 30 plus people to go to another city. You're dealing with hotel rooming blocks. You're dealing with making sure we kept catering in place. Generally what I do even though because people pay in order to be a part of this mastermind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to have the hotels. We generally give a gift to all the participants. We generally do a sponsor gift to our sponsors. We have corporate sponsors that assist with us because, again, for them, it's exposure to their products, right? And so initially it started as just a passion. And there will be times that I'd break even or I lose $1,000, $2,000. But the experience alone was worth it to me. And then now, as I have gotten through those points, now we make money, making those things happen because it is a heavy lift. It takes time to plan. I have staff, that assist with putting that together. So it's a process.
Do you think that you're making money on them now because you just realized that you weren't making money before, or you're capitalizing on the situation? Like I look at even a lot of my career or things that we do that are similar, where it's like, we always knew we should be making money, but it wasn't necessarily the priority. And the company, like our building companies, are what making us money. And this is always just like a passion project. And like, I don't know if now it's that we understand how to make money, or we've just gotten to a point where it's like, we either need to make money or stop doing this.
That's absolutely correct. It's crazy. And mind you, sometimes you do it from the standpoint, okay, you know what, this is just something interesting that I want to do. For instance, this coming up April, we are taking about 25 people to the International World Expo. The expo is taking place in Osaka, Japan, right? It happens every 5 years. The one we did back in 2000 was in Dubai. So I took a small group of people. There was about 10 of us. We went to Dubai. We went to the World Expo, and that's where all the different countries come together, and they put together exhibits anywhere between 10,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. And they showcase what is the next 10 to 25 years look like. So, for instance, they're talking about sustainable living. They're talking about new products that are coming out there. Like this one that's coming up in Japan in April, that one's talking about the flying cars, right? So they're going to be having flying taxis bringing people in from Tokyo to Osaka. Right now I have 25 paid people already booked for Japan in April.
That's, I've never even heard of that expo, but that's wild.
Look at the World Expo.
So it's
every 5 years.
It's like every country coming to compete for who's doing more.
Who's doing the best stuff. Yes, it is phenomenal. But it's an exposure.
So interesting, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going in and we're taking a real estate lens to understand how do we implement something that we learned there in our current business. So I make sure that my architect's coming with me. I make sure my real estate agent's coming with me. My designer's coming with me. Because we want to make sure that when we get ready to design and build our new product, that we're implementing and we're infusing some of those things that we learned. That's the reason for going to IBS. I bring my team to IBS so we can understand the latest and greatest technologies. And every year that we go to IBS, we implement something from the show shortly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of what it's been. So those are, passion projects that I don't tend to make money on, but it's, doing the mentorships because I want to be looked at by my peers as somebody who's doing something innovative and something different. And so now as we are bringing people in who are wanting to work with me, that they see the difference and they say, you know what, I want to do business with that guy.
I think it's an interesting approach, and it's one that I think Tyler and I certainly take in the sense that we look for outside inspiration. We look for what other industries are doing and how do we apply that to our own industry. And if anyone's listened to the last dozen podcasts, they've heard me talk about AI, but it's just so interesting on how fast it's developing and how far the construction industry as a whole is behind on tech.
Absolutely.
That AI is like barely a conversation at this point.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I started to partner up with other tech companies. Again, that being my background. So my background was data warehousing and business intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was in corporate America, I used to go to a lot of these Fortune 500 companies as a hired gun to do a lot of their data warehousing, data analytics, KPIs, things of that nature, right? From the Department of Defense, U.S. Senate, Capital One, you name it. Those were the industries that I was involved in. And then, so now I fast forward as we're building, I try to infuse tech into a lot of our projects, right? And so, we're utilizing Bravas as one of our tech companies to do a lot of our low voltage home automation things to our house. So we wire the house completely. Right now, we have a house that we are outfitting with Josh AI. And really implementing a lot of this tech to it, from geo fences when persons drive onto the site to things of that nature. And so we go to a lot of these conferences and get the exposure so we can implement those things in our build.
Speaking of the conferences and the Builder Show specifically, I had seen you, I think, a second time at the I think it was the Black Builders It was, I forget what it was.
It was a Black Builders Association, and there was the one in Vegas was a college student generated one because there were actually Tuskegee, my alma mater, we won the first place in the custom home build competition at IBS.
So that's what I want to get at is like that was. It was a mixer. That's the word I was looking for. Black Builders mixer, and I went.
I didn't
on
get
behalf
invited to that either.
I think
got you.
Dude, I'm getting zero invites.
I got invited.
Ladies Week.
But so that's what I want to get at is it seemed as though it was all kids, and so I guess what's your involvement with that association, and I guess what's the premise behind it, and obviously like what is the future behind that?
Sure. So a lot of the HBCU programs that we have, historical Black universities and colleges, don't have a outside link to a lot of the building industry. For instance, Tuskegee is 30 minutes from Auburn University. Auburn University has a strong construction science and architectural program. And so what my premise is to give knowledge and insight and context to students coming from the Tuskegees, the Morehouses, FAMU, things of that nature, to really help them out as they are starting to get into the world of construction. Because for me, my family didn't come from a construction background. My dad's retired Air Force. He worked for Lockheed and NASA. My mother worked for American Airlines when we were in California. And so, whatever I got from a real estate standpoint, I got it because I put my head down and learned it. Well, I'm trying to be the person where I can help foster that relationship and help people through that.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there was so many people there. And I had got to talk to a bunch of them, and it was just cool to hear, like, number one, they were stoked. A lot of those guys were on your team that had won. But it was cool to hear how passionate everyone and all those kids were about the building industry. You could hear them talking about the house that we were touring, and And now, what is your involvement with the actual association in regards to how it's tied back to the NAHB?
So I'm new to it, right? So now, because even the president, Charnay, she is the chair of that organization. And so now working with them in order to assist any way I can. I have my team here in Atlanta, and I have roots all across the country. Now I'm trying to make myself available to assist any way that I can. And even here in Atlanta, where there's strong roots, I'm trying to dive in and really, be a part of it.
So this is it's called the HBCU.
Historically Black College University. So, that's basically your Tuskegee, your Morehouse, your Florida A&M, your North Carolina A&T.
Delaware State.
Schools like that. Yeah, absolutely.
I've never.
Patrick, why do you think that there hasn't been as much representation on that side of it in the building industry?
I think it's more so from a trade as opposed to ownership standpoint. I think that we just don't know, or never had that family lineage from the standpoint of being the actual builder as opposed to just a tradesman. And so just like when I went into the colleges and I actually spoke to some of the students about what did they want to do, what did they want to be as they, graduated and went into the real world. A lot of the students wanted to be architects. A lot of the students wanted to own a construction company. But they didn't know how. They didn't know anybody that looked like them that was actually doing that at a high level. And so now we're trying to bring other mentors to the table that they can learn from.
See, the crazy thing to me, it's obviously like I'm white and not black, but like even just not having that thought, like thinking of why there's not that many black owned businesses in residential real estate or real estate in general. I would never consider it because you don't have people in position that are inspiring you to do that, or you don't have access to those people. So obviously I'm ignorant to that fact, not by choice, but that's an interesting dynamic that I would just be oblivious to, that it is important. Like, I could see how you could get behind something like that so strongly, especially if you were affected by that, or if this is an industry that you wanted to be in, to position yourself to be able to inspire these young kids and give them somebody to look up to or somebody to reach out to. And I think like at the end of the day, that was from the outset, like the entire preface of our podcast. And it's not black, white, color, race, ethnicity, anything like that. But it was as though 10 years ago, being 28 years old, having struggled for the past 5 years to find anyone that we fit in with that was younger in this industry, that would be willing to teach us, willing to invest in us, willing to give us a second of their time without feeling as though we were like being completely intimidated by them. Like, that was the entire preface of our podcast and why we did it for so long, really without any concern for recouping any sort of financial investment for it, because it was like, if we can position ourselves to give people like a shred of hope or opportunity that we didn't have, and that's just as being like 25-year-old white dudes that felt as though we weren't included within the industry.
Right. And it was crazy because the students that I did a paid internship, right? So, I paid my intern to come in, and the experience that he got, was, when he finished last week, he was ecstatic because he had a chance to see concrete getting poured. He had a chance to see framing on another project. He had a chance to understand MEPs that we did, at another house that we were building. And so previously it was just textbook. It was conceptual, right? He didn't get a chance to get in and dive in. So giving him that experience was phenomenal, to the point where we held an intern day. So we partnered up with other companies to bring them and their interns out so they can get the same experience. And that's basically what you stated is really, where do we fit in? Where do you get a chance to learn something without feeling like you're being, bothersome? And so that's kind of, how it all began.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be compounded to be like that age, and even to be like, we've had women on here where it's like, to be a young female entering the industry, like I look back at being 23 and wanting to start my business and feeling like I was going to shit myself, and I'm like as average and I can fit in with anyone anywhere, and it's like at that point to be like a young woman or a young black man or a young black woman, like how do you get into the industry? How do you feel welcome? Are certain areas going to be easier to do that? Is it not enough people putting themselves out there and being inclusive? Do we not need to make that big of a deal about it?
Right. I mean, I think that having a platform or a place where people feel it's a safe space where they can ask the questions without being intimidated,
Yeah.
that they can actually be around somebody who's willing to, impart the knowledge to them, I think is priceless.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, we are busy people, right?
Yeah.
We are, we got projects, we have deadlines, we have clients and customers that we have to, make sure that we meet those timelines. So being able to take that time out to somebody who's just cleaving for the knowledge is special in itself.
Yeah, and I think recognizing who that person is and like when there's opportunity to really capitalize on that as well, because I think that there's sometimes where there's that one person that needs that, or a group of kids where you're like, yeah, they could really run with this and excel, and being able to step back long enough that you understand like the service work of it is well worth the small time investment on your behalf.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny, and I'll be a little honest here in the sense, like when I remember being at that mixer, and I was like, man, I just want like all kids to be here, all college students, and thinking to myself like, why, why separate it, right? But I think, Patrick, you nailed it a couple minutes ago, where it's like the intimidation factor of like people that don't look like me. And then Tyler follows up with like, the whole point of the podcast was we were just two 25-year-old white dudes that just didn't have anyone. So when we went to an event and it was a bunch of 60-year-old grumpy dudes, like it was the same thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, it was just like, yeah, I'm not going to go hang out with them because they like, yeah, like, because I don't feel like, so, hearing like this discussion, it's, I know that there's like many factors to this, but, and like you said, like you're notoriously, it just hasn't been where the focus has been, or even the lineage of like, it's always been trade focused, not business owner focused. And to see like us continue to progress in a way that like supports, these young kids and like exactly what they want to do, that's super inspiring. And like I said, I talked to, some of those kids, and, some of them followed up after. And it's like, Nick, hey, you said that you'd share some information, like whatever you need, man. Like that's the whole point of what we're doing here. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that it is really important. And I think that a lot of times the perspective coming from our eyes, Nick, is going to be completely different than other people's experience. And like, even not totally. Even race or color or whatever your like worldviews are, but I think just like where you are, how you were brought up, and what that looks like, that like our perspective. And that's why I think it's so important to have people with a different perspective on the podcast, because we only know what we know, and like our world is actually pretty small. And I feel like it's this like microcosm of a much bigger picture, and getting some perspective of what that looks like is really important. And like the struggles that other people have, and that even like, I don't know what it's like to be 18 nowadays. Like I know what it was like when I was 18, and I know the struggles, but I don't know what that's like now. And I don't necessarily, like, I don't know if I have the answers to be able to help a college student, regardless of who they are, how to transition into the construction industry, being now that I'm 20 years removed from that. So I think that just like even positioning yourself to be close enough around those kids, like I don't know if I've been around 18-year-olds recently. Like my kids are 10 and 8, and then I'm 38. Like, I feel like I'm just disconnected from that entire like demographic of kids. So it's interesting to shed some light on that, where it's like, how are we helping an entire generation of kids when I don't feel like I can relate to them?
Right. When you're
I mean,
still like
maybe mentally I do, but like physically I can't. I feel old.
well, I feel older than you, but we have to tap in. I got you by 10 years.
So doing that, how do you balance devoting time to that with the business? And like, I see you're developing courses online. It seems as though you have a lot going on. Like, how do you prioritize, and how on a day-to-day basis are you splitting your time to be able to devote to everything that you feel you need to?
So one of the things that I try to do is I try to make sure that one, my calendar stays up to date, right?
Yeah.
With my staff and my assistant, to make sure that we are positioning ourselves to make sure that we schedule everything, right? But in addition to that, I try to make time, especially when calling on from a mentorship standpoint of things, because I know that it's very, very important. But in addition to that, making sure that I have all the right team members in place in order to handle the things when I am out of pocket and doing some of my, philanthropic things.
Did you struggle with that when you first got back into this injury? It seems that things like progressed relatively quickly for you. Like, what was the transition like going from, all right, I'm getting back into this, we're going to essentially build our own house, to where you are now? Like, how did you get there?
It's crazy because you have everybody pulling at your coat strings, and then you have people who are watching what you're doing. Hey, can I get a piece of your time, or can I shadow you, or can I you really have to kind of prioritize that, because I'm getting pulled from so many different areas, but also making sure that we had the things in place in order to service our current customers, to make sure that their needs were being met, and making sure, one, myself, my team, was their needs being met. For instance, I had to not always be working in the business as opposed to working on the business. And I think that that was a huge transition for me in the beginning, because I was so hands-on in terms of wanting to be a part of every aspect. I had to make sure that I properly delegated to make sure that things were getting done all the way across the board.
Yeah. So I think that one thing, as I've matured in business, is like, when I got into business for myself and I didn't have the confidence in myself, and was developing like my skill set, my business acumen, how to sell work, and understanding, like, I was striving for perfection and creating this user experience that was flawless and close to perfect. And a lot of that was because of my own self-esteem, and wanting to feel confident that I wasn't going to screw something up. Um, as you progress in business, um, and you learn more about yourself and you learn more about business, are you open to like accepting the struggles that you face on a day-to-day basis, and like what some of those struggles are, that you deal with? Because it seems, talking to you, everything's on the up and up, it's all going great, but Nick and I know deep down, like, a lot of times things are a mess and it's not going according to plan. Like, what are some of your greatest struggles going from where you started to even like the day to day now? Because it has to be super difficult with everything that you have going on to keep it all straight and to have things run flawlessly. And I think that a lot of times it's very relatable to hear, like, oh yeah, that's something that I experienced too, or that's something that we haven't really gotten figured out. I think like some perspective and insight to that would be super helpful.
Sure. So for me, it was time management was obviously a thing that I had to figure out to make sure that I was, being as diligent as I could be, but also just looking at access to capital, right? Because as we spoke about previously, this is something that we learned as I went along, and understanding certain capital partners that will allow me to maneuver through the space as efficiently as possible. And that's still an ongoing thing. Lines of credit, access to capital is really one thing that has always been a pain point. But in addition to that, making sure that the right team is in place, because sometimes who you start with is not always who you're going to finish with, right? And making sure that that when somebody's not good for yourself or your company, that you know that it's time to move on for them, because at some point in time they could actually start weighing you down.
Do you ever?
So, go ahead.
Sorry. Do you ever feel like you put yourself out there a lot? I put myself out there a lot. Nick does too. And obviously, like, with that's going to come criticism and critique and everything else. Like, is there ever a fear that you have to keep it like so perfectly together, or else you're going to get backlash where it's like, not the imposter syndrome where it's like, all right, I'm going to hop on a call and I'm going to consult somebody on their business while I don't have all the answers to business. So like,
not necessarily from my standpoint, I don't mind being vulnerable to at least people that I'm teaching and talking with, because I want them to learn from my mistakes or learn from the things that I've been through. So I think that it's good for them to see or hear those things, and understand that it's not going to always be perfect. And my mantra that I always tell people, what can go wrong is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's how you bounce back and how resilient are you to when those things do happen.
Yeah, I think that that's important for people to know. I also I think that something that plagues a lot of the younger men and women getting into the industry, and humans in general, but it's always like comparing yourself to what other people are doing, and seeing how people portray themselves online and what life looks like, and realizing that like what you see may not be indicative of what's really going on. So I think that being open and honest and transparent and giving some people some insight is the problems. I know that you I was watching your one video where you guys put down sod and then they got infested with some sort of worms, and just like it's neat to be able to show that vulnerability and expose yourself to some of the criticism, or it's like, hey, I just like figured out what the heck was going on here. We've been struggling with this for so long. Like, if I can help anybody else out, I'm not claiming to be a professional in this matter, but like, this is what we figured out. I'm willing to help you.
That's right. It's crazy because I even have one of the mentees that I have that's in my program. And, the reason why he decided to, come aboard, with us is because we were showing our vulnerable states from that perspective and saying, hey, listen, it's not going to always be, peachy cream. Things are going to go wrong. What I try to let people know is that there's a way to bounce back from it.
Mm. What is typically the way to bounce back? Like, what's your
I mean, every situation is different. However, yeah, right, exactly. But it's a matter of making sure that you understand, acknowledge your mistakes, and then figure out how to, overcome and do them better the next time. Just like a house, every house is not going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But guess what? We learned from that. When I first did my first tile roof, and we found out that we didn't do a groutless, and we had grout on the tile, and we had TPO underneath, but the grout started to crack, and then water started getting to the roof seams and things of that nature. I said, you know what? The next time I do a rooftop deck, then I need to, make sure we waterproof it this way. And so really taking those situations that didn't go quite as planned and building upon each one of those situations.
What, with your mentorships, or even as with the case that Nick, how he met you at the Builder show, what do you think is like the most common theme that you experience with the younger men and women wanting to get into this industry? Like, where do you feel that they need to be guided the most?
They need real world experience, and they need somebody that they can call on when they just have a question, and not feel like they're stupid or asking a dumb question. They need somebody that they can talk to.
And those are two of the hardest things to get. Like, because there's so much resiliency to, it's difficult to hire people that don't have experience. unless you have a business that can support that, it's like, I would love to hire you and mentor you. I don't have the time.
Are most of those mentorships and those relationships, obviously the program that you're affiliated with is based on college, but are most of those relationships through a school of some sort?
In some cases, but other cases, they're just students that want to, latch on to somebody who has experience or they feel that could offer them something, more. And the thing about it is, I get 50-50. I get college students, but I also have people that are in the industry.
Yeah.
I get quite a few people that are in the industry that says, hey, Patrick, I've been doing X for 10 years. I'm looking to get into development, or I'm looking to, change my business model. I like what you've been doing. I've been watching. I would love for you to mentor me or help me get through this phase of my professional career.
And how do you think people are finding you to do that other than the program that you're set up with?
Online has been the number one.
Yeah.
And then word of mouth. And it's because people actually get a chance to see some of the things that I'm actually doing and they're experiencing with me. I try to be as authentic as possible as we're going through some of this process. Although we are dealing with high-end homes, we still show that the difference between a $500,000 house and a $2 million house is finishes.
Yeah.
You still got a foundation. You still got to do framing. You still got to do roof and MEPs, right? But the core basis of it is that you tie your shoes up just like I tie mine up. And that's what I try to understand and get people to see it from those lenses, and they feel more comfortable, should I say.
Do you think that there's you have the capacity or outlet to reach a larger number of people than you do right now? Like when I think of service work and being able to help as many people, part of the reason why I've stuck with the podcast and record a separate podcast every week and try and just stay relevant within the community is because I feel my impact through this is far greater than the impact I have through my actual work, right? Where I'm doing a handful of jobs a year, you're building 1 or 2 houses a year. Like, what is the exposure? What's the impact that you have? And
Right.
I'm curious, like, obviously you have a lot going on, but is there a world that you live in where you have a greater reach to extend help, not necessarily one-on-one, but to more youth and more people?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I try to do, different speaking engagements or podcasts or things of that nature, because I do want to reach a larger audience. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have any idea what that looks like or how to get there other than what you're doing right now? Like, is with all of this that you're doing, is there like a big picture goal?
Well, I have a couple of different big picture goals, from
You're
the
like
standpoint.
Nick's got a lot of goals.
Because one of my big picture goal is being able to bring on the people who we are doing these larger projects or these larger mentorships through, and be able to go and do larger projects such as our townhomes, such as apartment complexes, things of that nature, infield lots, things like that. In order to do so, that takes a lot of capital. It takes a lot of resources. So working with the people that I'm helping mentoring, the goal is where we can do some of this stuff together, right? But in addition to that, the goal from a mentoring perspective, I would like to, have a larger reach to a lot of these students and a lot of other people that I can be able to, assist where possible. And that's the reason why I try to immerse myself with the IBS and the student portion population of that.
This goes back to something I said earlier. You're using real estate as your hub. You're developing homes, you're building homes, you're building rentals, and then now you're talking about doing larger projects and bringing more individuals into those projects to give them the opportunity to create wealth, you're creating these opportunities.
It's hard because like Nick, you get to a certain point based on your sweat equity and the work that you put into it, but at some point, like, if you want to grow, I mean, I'm sure that some people make it without it, but like you need money to drive that ship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where are you going to generate? And like, that's turning to sponsors, turning to partners, trying to put courses out, like all of this stuff. Like it can't just continue to come at a cost to you. So like, yeah, the service feels great of it, but at some point, like, to reach your true potential, you need some sort of financial backing, and trying to figure out how to make that happen. I think it has been the most challenging aspect for us. And it's never limited what we are doing, but at the same time, I feel that so much of that, like, it's never limited our mindset or our willingness to do it. But I do think that we've had a cap on what we've been able to do because it's all been self-funded or
Self-funded.
a handful of sponsors. But at the end of the day, it's not like that money from sponsors is going in our pockets and we're like, yeah, like, it's just going right
No,
back
people
into
don't
it.
understand that. They
Yeah.
think the sponsorship money is, buying you a Bentley or something. No,
No, it's keeping you afloat. Like, it's paying for like the production and the traveling and all of the time invested in it. But I think the goal is to be able, like, it's a shame because most people don't understand how enjoyable and how good it can feel to provide service work or help other people or provide a mentorship. But a lot of times you have to be financially secure, or more than financially secure, to be able to do that. Because like, if you're doing one thing, you can't be doing another thing. And I think that like, it's a shame because most people who probably would be the best people to provide mentorships don't have the bandwidth or the time to be able to devote to it.
That's right.
It's hard to step away from what you're doing. It's like, I have to monetize this or I have to monetize that in order to be able to spend the time to help somebody else out. Which makes it pretty difficult.
It's that constant, like, you're constantly adding on, right? Like, you're doing more and more. And Tyler, you're spot on. It's like, you think about sponsors and putting on these events. Like, we too we put on the Contractor Coalition event, and it's an expensive event to attend, but it's even more expensive to put together. Yeah, and when you look at the budget, you realize, like, man, that money goes real fast.
And it's almost like you get to a point where it's so much that you almost can't not do it. And you're like trying to chase that dragon of like, if we do this much more, if we do this much more, but at the same time, you're trying to help people. So you're like, all right, well, I'll concede that and I'll concede that to be able to keep them afloat. But then you think, if I were to do none of this and just had time to spend on the shit that I needed to do, like, where would I be in life at that point instead of just being all over the place?
Right. People don't understand, man, that, people who do the things that we do from that perspective, it's a passion and we enjoy what we're doing. But, at the same time, there's a cost in order to make it happen.
So what's on the docket for you? What's the next big move? What's on your agenda and your plans?
So right now we're working on 3 customs, and then we have a townhome community that we're working on. And then we should finish the 2 customs by September timeframe. And then we're picking up another 3 acres to do 6 modern homes. So we have that going. A couple of different engagements. Like I said, we're looking at getting ready to do a LA summit sometime in October. We're finalizing dates for it now. But man, it's just pushing forward, in terms of all the stuff that we have.
How many people do you have working for you?
So right now there's 5 FTEs. Then we have 2 interns, mentors, and then the rest are subs. And some of the subs that we use, they're long relationship subs where we've been using them for, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So the full-time employees, what are their roles?
So one's an executive assistant who really handles a lot of our back office stuff, and then the others are project site supervisors and project foremen.
Nice. And then
And
Kind of
they
everything
helping
else
me
is
be
stuff.
my bread and butter, especially when I'm not on a project site on a day-to-day basis. That's part
Mhm.
of their role. And so every morning after we have our 9 o'clock or in our 9 o'clock meeting, basically understanding where um, things are taking place on particular sites, and then myself dividing my time amongst all those different type of sites.
So you guys will meet every morning at 9,
Absolutely.
and that's a decision as to where to go.
Right. So I have some of my site supervisors and foremen. They have their sites that they're assigned to.
Got it.
It's either one large site or two sites in close proximity of each other, and then I divide my time based upon obviously working, on the business, and
Hmm.
then as I need to go to my individual project sites and handle certain things, put out fires or what have you. That's how I
Hmm.
divide my time.
Yeah, it's, I think about like how spread you are, and I was looking at your site earlier, and one of the questions I had was you've built quite a personal brand, and and we've talked a lot about kind of everything that you do, but you everything's encompassed under one kind of umbrella, and it's your brand, and when people are reaching out to you, is there, I think Tyler might have asked this in a different way earlier, but like, is there anytime like a level of confusion as to like, am I hiring you as a home builder, or are you consulting for it, or are you hosting an event so I can learn how to build,
Oh no, we
that.
we have very delineated tasks that we have from that perspective. So, for instance, if somebody's coming to me as a build,
Mm-hmm.
we put them through a series of questionnaires in terms of making sure
Got
that
it.
one, it makes sense for us to even build for you,
Mm-hmm.
as well
Is
as
that automated?
part of it is automated. And
Yeah.
then the other portion is now you're going through my assistant to making sure that we go to that next level of flushing things out. And then I'll take the meeting once it's kind of gone through those particular checks and balances. Um, and then for those people who are wanting mentorship, that portion of it is automated where they'll go through that, and then she'll handle those calls thereafter to make
Yeah.
sure that it makes sense, because it's a dual interview, right? I'm not just taking anybody who wants a build or mentorship or what have you. It needs to make sure that it's a fit and that they're ready for it. Even for the people who are doing our 1 year track, um, if you don't have the time to devote to learning this, I don't even want to take your money, because I want to make sure
Yeah.
that you're going to be as successful as possible. And we want to know from the beginning, do you even have the time to do what it takes in order to make it happen? It's
Yeah.
crazy because even my full-time employees, um, they shadowed me for a year before I even hired them,
Mm.
because I needed to make sure that they were in this thing for the long haul. And they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that I always sometimes it limits me with how much I can do or what I'm willing to put out, where it's like I need to make sure that this is worth the investment on all parties involved. And I'm like, it's almost, is it good enough to put out there? Are we ready? And I don't feel like we ever are. And I realize that like oftentimes I'm probably overthinking it and actually limiting what I'm able to do, because I'm like, it's just not good enough. It's not right. This person's not going to commit the amount of time to it, where I think that I should probably let some of that go and be like, all right, let's just see what happens here. I put all the things in place. Let's see how this pans out, rather than like, well, we're not going to do it yet. We're not going to do it. It's not perfect yet. Where it's like, if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it probably never will. And it's
That's
never going to
correct.
happen.
And what I found is that even for our membership track, our mentorship track, when I did it for free because I enjoyed it, people didn't take it as serious as they
Yeah,
do when they pay.
Yeah.
When
absolutely.
they pay, they're fully vested because they've invested something into that particular mentorship track, and they're willing to do the things that's needed to make them successful.
Yeah, that's true. And I honestly, that makes it more enjoyable for you as well. Not just because you're getting paid, but it's like the quality of this interaction is so much better at this point,
Yeah.
substantially better. That's cool, man. It's neat to see how much stuff you're doing and how involved you are, and all that you have going on. I find it similar to the same mindset that we have, where it's like there's a lot going on right now, but we kind of wouldn't have it any other way.
It was crazy because one of the guys who, just came on our mentorship track, he was like, "You get in the field with us?" I said, "Absolutely. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do." I said, yesterday I changed 3 times because when we're out here working in this yard, it's just hot out here, and, we got filthy, but we got to it. I said, I'm going to be here right next to you, making sure that we get things done. So whether I'm on, one of our sites across town where we're doing the townhome community and getting those things going, or we're doing a walkthrough with an engineer and we need to get down and dirty to make sure that we got things done, I'm going to be there. So I want people who are willing to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember a few years ago, like having the same sentiment and being the business owner and willing to be able to do, and you get the people who are going to argue and be like, your time's so much more valuable doing this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, it's like your business is your business, and how you want to set the tone or what you want to do with it and how you want to structure it and how you want to make money. Like, yeah, there's always opportunities to make more money, or yeah, you could always be doing something different when your time, but like, being able to develop that like camaraderie and create yourself an equal with employees, like to me, that's an investment that's somewhat invaluable.
That's right.
Patrick, you have history in sports, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
What's your history in sports?
No, I mean, so obviously I played ball. I didn't go to the pro level or anything like that. However, after
Football, right?
Yeah, football.
Yeah.
After I got out of college, I started running a professional flag football league, and we ended up doing that at a very high level, to the point where we were playing with ex-pro athletes. We actually did a $1 million game on NFL Network.
What does that mean? $1 million game?
Exactly what you said.
It costs $1 million?
No, you win $1 million.
Okay.
Damn.
So
that's the better
flag
side.
football's huge now. Like my kid, it's like a full sport here now. That like there's boys leagues, girls leagues. It's crazy.
So imagine this. So the team that I had was comprised. We had Danny Werfel as our primary quarterback. We had Michael Vick as our throwback quarterback. We had Jason Avant as one of our receivers. We had several pro flag guys playing. So we did pretty well. We did pretty well.
You guys win?
We lost in double overtime for that $1 million game. We won some money, but not what we should have.
Yeah, right. Do you still play?
No, I actually got injured. I got injured about 3 years ago. I was going out, we were playing in a tournament, turned around, caught a ball. And now, mind you, we're playing contact flag, right? So it was 8-on-8 contact flag. Turned around and the defender was coming down. It's a rainy game on turf. His knee hit underneath my knee. I shattered my knee, tore my meniscus, patella, everything shattered. Pins and everything still in my knee today. But no, I don't play. So a little bit of coaching, but that's about it.
You're a fit guy. I remember.
Right. I'll still stay in shape.
Yeah.
I'll still stay in shape.
But I feel like I remember seeing you. I'm like, that dude looks like he plays football every minute he gets.
We were very, very active. And it was enjoyable because, you got to have your outlets, right? So now my outlet is still heavy travel.
There you go.
That's cool.
Patrick, you're an inspiration, man. I appreciate meeting you in Vegas. I hope to see you again out there and everything that you got going on.
We need to do something else outside of Vegas, man. Like,
All right, well,
invite me up. I'll fly up.
Well, you're from California though, so you're not a Braves fan, right?
No.
Good.
So I'm a Niner fan.
All right.
And I'm a Dodger fan.
Oh, Phillies are playing the Dodgers right now. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe after October we can. But
definitely a Niner fan. That's my heart right there.
Nice.
When is your event? coming up in
It's
the
going to either be
fall?
the second or it's going to be the third or fourth weekend of October. I'll have more details on that
Okay.
within the next 2 weeks.
What's your website?
PLHhomes.com and PatrickLHenderson.com is the brand.
Cool. Well, we have an event coming up at the end of September.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get you up for that.
Absolutely. I would love to come.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll get you up there.
Yeah, just give me all the details. I'll make it happen.
Sweet, man.
I'll send you the details. Patrick, you're awesome, man. I appreciate you, and we will chat soon.
All right, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Stay cool. It does not look cool there.
It's very hot. So right now we're about 86 degrees, but it's very, very humid.
Yeah.
But it's better than the rain that we had a couple weeks ago. I think it rained the whole month of July here.
Oh,
Dang.
And so now we're getting, to some better weather, but it's still very, very warm.
It feels like it's raining outside, but it's not. That's how it's been in New Jersey all summer. It's
So you're
gross.
in New Jersey, huh?
Yeah. Nick's up in Boston. I'm in Jersey, but we had like the beginning of summer was hot, but not humid. And it's always pretty humid here, but we've had one day, it was one Friday that the humidity broke and then was back by that night. And it's just been like the most awfully humid summer ever. And I'm like, this has got to be what like Georgia feels like. Like, I swear.
No, but it's been a pleasure, guys. Let me know if you guys need anything. I'm here for you, okay?
Cool. We appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Outside is the last place I would be in August in Atlanta to record a podcast. I pretty much be anywhere but there.
It's like, Tyler, you can be anywhere in the world to record a podcast. Outside in Atlanta.
Yeah, outside in the beginning of August.
Yeah. Patrick's great. He's got, I know you referenced me, but like he's got so much going on, and I feel like he just moves and moves and moves, and that's why I brought up the sports at the very end. I feel like that plays such a role into his life.
Yeah.
And he talked about, he's coaching now, but he just, I don't know. I met him. I had met him at the show, then saw him at the Black Builder Mixer, and I was like, dude, he's legit. Like he's got a lot of good stuff going on and builds a cool product down in Atlanta.
I forget. I think maybe I was presenting, or maybe I was leaving.
Yeah, you had to leave.
I was going to lunch with my brother, who I was at the show, and I hadn't seen him, and you guys went.
Yeah.
And I miss that. But
well, we'll get the info for his event if you guys want to join, but make sure you check out contractorcoalitionsummit.com, because I was talking to the crew. They're still selling tickets, but they got a bunch of deposits on a bunch of the slots left. We have 30 total. Contractorcoalitionsummit.com, September 27th through the 30th.
Boston.
We got a lot going on. The schedule's up there. We also got a pre-event event where we're going to tour the 45 Wood Oak project. And then make sure you head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for our newsletter. You guys, first and foremost, hold on. We haven't even talked about the fact that last time we promoted it, the first time we promoted it, 300 people signed up. Like, that's insane. So shout out to everyone that signed up. I appreciate it. We've got the newsletter being kicked out, live. You're getting updates. We got a bunch of more content that we're going to be putting out. You'll hear from Tyler and I directly on some of the stuff that we're working on. So make sure you head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for that newsletter, and check out some of the free stuff that we have on the website that you can download today.
Yeah, and also with the newsletter and the email link, like at first we're trying to, get on your radar, at least explain what we're doing, what we're up to, and we're firing a bunch at you all at once. Be patient. That will settle down, and then we'll get on like a normal cadence of, hey, new podcast coming out. Hey, this new information that we're putting out. So we are not going to be firing 6 emails at you every day, every single week. We're getting the ball rolling hot and heavy. And then from there, we'll scale back and get onto a more standard cadence. So don't be afraid if you sign up and you see a bunch of stuff from us. That's just going to get you in the loop as far as what we have going on and brief you as to what the word is. And then from there, it'll just be an update. And as new podcasts come out, as new information, as new content that we put out, more coursework, all that stuff.
And I'm just going to share it here. If you guys do sign up soon, because we have a couple discount codes that we're going to share only through the newsletter for the summit coming up in Boston. Till then, we'll see you next week.
Adios.